One, welcome to Crossing Faiths. I'm John Pinna, and today we have Ruth Reck, who's a social media influencer and a visitor of faith-based sites. Um, she has a tagline with her wife that "We go, so you don't have to." But I think there's a better one that you guys use, which is "Come with us, it'll get weird." Welcome to Crossing Faiths.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So, a little bit of a backdrop is that we have a lot of faith-based sort of sites in America, and you went viral for going to Noah's Ark and to the Creation Museum, among others. And so, I just thought it would be nice to have you on to just chat about some of your experience and who you are and what you're about and what brought you to going online onto TikTok and really just sort of having the camera follow you to these interesting sites. So maybe you could just start off with you can just go to these sites and experience them, but you decided to go with your wife and film uh, experiencing these sites. What's the motivation behind it?
The motivation is definitely the rise of Christian nationalism in America. I I've always been intrigued by human psychology and why people do things, and the reasoning. I needed to go and experience some of these places for myself. It's one thing to read about it online, but it's a totally different experience when you go and you're immersed in it.
Right.
So we don't live too far from the Ark Encounter in the Creation Museum. And I always wanted to go to the Ark, especially like when it came out. And, you know, I, it's just, you have to see it to believe it. And I thought, let's just film it. And that was our first viral video. So I had no intention of it, the social media account being about visiting religious places. It just sort of exploded.
Right, right. Well, you're in Ohio, right? And so I flew into, is it Columbus, Ohio, and drove to Athens.
Okay.
And it's a few hours or an hour and a half. I don't know how, it's maybe 2 hours. But I remember on the sides of barns, there was all these religious sort of slogans. It was like, do you know that you're not alone? And I was driving, he's coming back. And then you just keep going, and it was like Jesus is Lord, and you're like, oh, okay, I know what's going on here. And then you end up thinking, as a Muslim, you end up thinking, is there going to be a roadblock? Is there are there going to be some kind of forced conversion before I get to Athens? And so there's a lot of faith-based communities, and there's a lot of outwardly projected faith-based narratives, and like on the sides of the barns, the billboards, and so forth in the state that you're in, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And some of them are quite sinister. Like closer to the bigger cities, there's a big billboard that says hell is real, and the H is red, and then there's the 10 commandments after it. And, so I don't know what evangelical church is behind all of these signs, but they're all throughout Ohio, and they're some of them are about abortion, and it's like call this number for the truth. And I've never called the number, but I am curious.
Yeah, it's very forward, and it's very in your face, and so and we live in a country where freedom of religion, right? So everybody can just do whatever they want, more or less. Freedom to believe, not believe, change and choose. But in this climate, it has a different turn because people are empowered. But your state has got a long history or at least a healthy history of Christian. I'm gonna say nationalism, but Christian based or Christian forward sort of narratives and promotion and sites, which you right around your backyard is the Ark Experience and the Creation Museum. And so, what was so why so you went to the Creation? Which one did you go to first?
We went to the Ark first.
Okay.
And, it's funny, the people in the comments, because they're like, I'd be laughing hysterically. It's like, go. You go and see if it's funny because I thought it would be not funny immediately. Like, because
So
you're just right away, they come in hot with all the cages and laying things out for you, and there are dinosaurs in the cages, and you're just trying to sort of adjust yourself to what timeline is this? Some Christians believe dinosaurs' bones were put here to test our faith. The creationists have included them in their 6,000-year-old timeline. So, it's a lot to take in. So by the time we went to the Creation Museum, we already knew more than we should have known. So we were prepared. We were mentally prepared for all of the things that they teach their followers.
well, you're an Ohioan, so it's a Christian, it's a largely Christian community there, but also you arrive, right? And so for our listenership, I'm not sure they quite grasp what the encounter is. So there's a museum of Noah's Ark, and actually have an ark that they've rebuilt to
Yes,
scale,
it's to scale of of biblical proportions, literally.
right? To the cubit, which is the measurement that they used back then. So you drive up, you park in the parking lot, and then you're approaching this massive wooden ark, and that's to scale, and so immediately you're there. What was the feeling when you're when you're approaching that? Because you said it's not funny, but you're like kind of like, okay, we're gonna park the car. There must be, are the signs funny going in? Like, what do the signs say?
Yeah, so okay, you park your car. And it was a Saturday. The parking lot was pretty empty, but you have to get on a tour bus and drive about a mile to get to the Ark. So you're separated from your vehicle and you're at the mercy of the tour bus schedule.
Okay.
And so once you get there, we had already looked into, they have something on their website that there's a movement called Taking the Rainbow Back from the LGBTQ community. So they have this enormous rainbow arch that you have to walk through. There's a big building we didn't enter called the Answers Center.
Because at the end of the biblical story is the ark, God floods the planet and kills everybody, but then the symbol of the new covenant is the rainbow, right? That he's not going to do this again, right?
Yes,
That's
like
the
nobody owns the rainbow. No
right.
one owns it, but they put it there as the arch to enter to get to the huge outdoor ark. You know, that's what you have to walk through in order to get to this enormous piece of property where they've got this huge boat that doesn't sail, where it's and the inside is well, I'm going to loosely say museum of all of these exhibits so that you can see exactly what the ark would have looked like. So there's all these cages that seem heavily inspired by Petland. There's like, a water dropper type situation, how the animals drank water in their cages. There's all these like big giant vases of, I'm assuming water and food. And there's a lot of exhibits of like Noah and his family. It's sort of the Ark B&B experience of that, of what that looked like on a daily life in the Ark,
Sure.
how the food was grown, but it wasn't in natural light. So I don't know how these plants were growing without sunlight. There's just like a lot of holes in the story
Right.
that they didn't cover. So, especially like everybody was a vegetarian before and during the flood, and they had their creationists are sort of always in a reactionary state of like over explaining things because they've been asked these questions.
Right. And
So,
so it was a with a was your experience that it was it was more trying to convince, or it was sort of matter of fact, or kind of what was the sort of tone of it?
the tone is that it's history, that
Okay.
you are walking through a historically accurate depiction of what happened in the Bible. Like, here it is. Here's all the facts, but they don't have any artifacts. They don't have any relics. they don't have anything to present to you except these, scenes that they've created of what it actually would have been like to be on the ark.
So there's no Ark artifacts from like Mount Ararat, or is there? Do
No.
they talk about that story at all? Do they talk about the resting place?
There's so much to see and take in. You're just kind of like, it's too much information. I had to stop reading at one point because it's like I can't let this information mix with the facts that I do know. I couldn't let too much information, there's information everywhere. You can read about everything. They explain how the earth was flooded. I don't think they explained how, lakes desalinated themselves from the salt water. They might have, but there's just, there's so much information. You can't just, that's why they want you to come back and spend more money. And it's very expensive. It's more expensive than any museum I've ever been to. It's like $65
Huh.
plus $15 per parking for parking. You can pay even more money to do a day pass because the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter are owned by the same company. So they're about 30 minutes from each other. So you can do everything in a weekend.
I love that. Is there a restaurant there? Is there a concessions?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes. There's like okay. So it felt like a giant grift from the minute you got there.
Well, it's a company that runs these things, and
Understood. But there's a gift shop on every single level. Everywhere you turn, there's a kiosk to buy something. There's coffee and food, and it's just literally everywhere. They just want you to keep spending money. One of the paintings we looked at was $6,000.
huh, okay.
I don't know who's purchasing that, but yeah, there's just spend as much as you can there, is what it felt like while you're learning about the truth of that, whatever they think.
And is that like I said, was the concession that was it what was the food?
So I have celiac disease and I'm lactose intolerant. So I don't usually get food, but there was, I think, a coffee shop that had bagels and muffins and sugary things. There was,
Was it
I can't
named?
remember.
They have funny names for things.
They did have funny names, and like again, I recorded it. I don't
Well,
remember what they
the
were.
link, because we want people to go and see, see your experience.
Yes,
But like,
there.
was it funny? Like I've always like I'm always curious about how things are packaged, a little bit, so
Yeah, it was all themed. It was all Noah's Ark themed. Even the gift shops had, scarves you could buy that look like maybe they were from that time period. Little tchotchkes, little animals that you could buy. That felt like Ark themed
okay,
clothing.
sure. All right, right on. I mean, I think that, I talk with my evangelical friends, and there's a want for sort of wholesome engagement and wholesome activities for the family, and so like their go-to is like these type of Bible themed Bible themed museums. And a bunch of my friends do this stuff from the multi-faith space, and it's interesting because it's like they feel like, oh, you want to know what, this is safe harbor, because it's biblical, but it's really, is it, from what's your take, is it really just something where it's a revenue stream for someone who may or may not believe in it, to take advantage even of the Christian community?
Yeah, I mean, so I went to Catholic school for 12 years, even though I grew up in a non-religious home. And, the Catholics think the creationists are crazy. You know, a lot of branches of Christianity, especially the older religions within that, think that this is kind of wild. I was taught science in science class. I learned about dinosaurs in science class, not that they were in the Bible on Noah's Ark.
Right, right.
You
Well,
know, I
what's
don't.
what's the integration of that? Like, how did that happen? Like, what's the argument? It's like the Earth is 6,000 years old. There were dinosaurs, and they were there too.
So they don't believe in evolution.
Right.
They believe in animal kinds. I know way too much about this now. They believe in animal kinds and variations within that kind of animal. So there's only one dog, and there's variations within the first dog.
Okay.
But they have to jam pack all of this stuff, all of these animals, all this evolution into 6,000 years. Even though they reject evolution, it's wildly confusing. It's just so much harder to believe that than science and some facts. Like I, I don't know. It's
Well, it's fun.
for
It's
some for someone who's an atheist, but I'm an agnostic atheist. I'm hopeful there's something else. We don't know all the answers. That's where I'm at. But yeah, this was just, it was hard to take in that, specifically because watching the children learning this and as fact.
right. So I mean, was that your? I mean, admittedly, that instead of chicken wings, pterodactyl wings, and instead of a turkey leg, it's the Tyrannosaurus leg. That's fun. That's fun in the restaurant or whatever it is. But was your experience that like children were being indoctrinated into
Yes.
a narrative, and
Yeah.
and how so observing that with the parents or the adults that were in the room, like what was your observation of that interplay?
Um, I was horrified because these are the people we're going to have to deal with later.
Right.
I don't, I thought it was going to be funny going there and seeing dinosaurs in cages and, this is so ridiculous, haha. It's not funny because you're watching the parents interacting with their kids and like, I didn't see any skeptics there. I saw people with their children explaining all of these things like they're facts,
Right.
like this actually happened. It was hard to watch.
Kids walking away with a stuffed animal ark or whatever it is, and that's their family experience from when they're a kid. It's like, remember the Ark Museum? Remember we did that, And so, I mean, I have a friend of mine from college. It's like 30 years now, and when he was in college, he was playing. Uh, it was a Star Wars video game. I can't remember what it was called, and he used to say he was in Jedi training, and he was a big Star Wars guy. And now, as you know, I'm in my 50s, and he still talks about the betrayal of the Jedi. And there's a little point where we're like, do you still do you still think you're a Jedi? Like it's that type of thing. And we don't want to do the math on it too much because we're like, you know, where it's just kind of like, okay, that's his thing. Just let him just believe whatever he wants to believe. But then we're like, he's a mechanic. Is he trying to fashion a plasma sword and may kill himself and burn down his shop? And we kind of joke about that. There's like this idea of who he is and his identity, and it's kind of wrapped up in this sort of fantasy. And so it must be difficult to see that at the museum and what's going on, and you're like, because you're right, these people become adults, and I suffer from psychosis. I'm more than willing to admit that what I believe may not be true, but it's mine, and I do believe it. As I had a friend about a week ago say, "Well, do you believe that Muhammad was, carried up to heavens on a chariot?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah. I'd like to think that that's possible." And it's like, "Do you really believe it?" And I go, if you're gonna, ask me to put my hand on the Quran and say, do I believe it? From a faith-based suspension of disbelief, absolutely. Do I think it's possible? I'm not a prophet, beloved of God, so you want to know what, I'm flawed. So, I like to see proof of things, but I'm big into faith. I love my faith, and if you prove to me God doesn't exist right now, I'm not sure you could separate that and pull it out of me. I think I probably still believe, and that's crazy. But I don't impose. You know what I mean? So I'm Ishmaeli. We don't Ishmaeli or un-Ishmaeli, so it doesn't matter. So I don't really care. It's like this is just my little comfort zone. It's like we're not buying anything other than Cheez-Its. We're not buying the store manufacturer brand of Cheez-Its. We're buying Cheez-Its because I believe in Cheez-Its. So
Yeah.
even though they might taste the same and might be cheaper, the Cheez-Its are mine. So I guess, so I mean, this ties into the creation, right? So the creation museum that you went to. But before we do that, you have a partner. You have a wife that you bring with you, and,
Yes,
and so you have a chaperone
I
to
do.
what's going on. And I don't mean that in a pejorative sense. I'm just saying, like, so you're not just kind of like walking in and kind of like there's you're a duo. So maybe we talk a little bit about if you're comfortable talking about
Yeah.
your partner and her experience and because you're very engagement forward. And you mentioned it a little bit in the beginning about trying to, we all have a collective anxiety about Christian nationalism right now, and a collective sort of anxiety about what's going on, and so that's manifesting itself in these sort of visits and your online journalism related to engaging these sites. But your wife is with you during these, and so you actually have someone that's observing this with you. What's her motivations and experience, and how does she fit into all of this?
So she is an atheist. She doesn't believe any of this, and she doesn't really want to be there, which I think is why I'll say the bit works, like she's the straight character in these scenes. She's sort of your voice of reason. She's I'm kind of the one that's gonna make all of the ridiculous comments, and she's just just hating every second of it. But it's someone I can commiserate with when, because some of it's hard to deal with by yourself. So she'll come in with really, she's very intelligent, but very introverted. So, I think why these things work is that, yes, we are kind of poking fun here and there, but we're being very quiet and respectful while we're there. I see a lot of people on social media starting fights or confrontations with people. Like, we don't want to talk to the staff. We don't want to interact with anyone. We want to go and observe and then we'll report back. But yeah, her involvement is very, like, she's just a hostage, basically.
Well, but I saw some of the videos. I mean, you basically do the same thing everywhere you go. You went to Egypt and you went to a couple of mosques, right? A couple,
Yeah,
and there's no real difference in the different and how you observe. You kind of let the site speak for itself. So like
yeah.
I remember you were in Egypt and you went to one of the masjids and you were like, oh, you got to wear the slippers and you got to do this, and you were just describing, and you do the same thing with the Creation Museum and the Ark. But the challenge is that you've got a lot more. You get a lot more to go on at these places because they sort of double down on like explaining or over explaining. You go to a mosque and it is what it is. It's a place of worship, and everything might seem peculiar, but the realities are is that this is people just worshiping and doing things. So and I was racking my brain on to think of, do we have these same things in Islam? We don't have theme parks based on Islam. We don't have that. But we do, like, I just came out of Muharram, which is uh, it's a it depends on who on which branch or which sect or which maktab you are in Islam as a Muslim, but because it's celebrated, it can be 3 days, 10 days, 12 days, or 30 days or 60 days, right? So it depends on the holiday, on how you observe, and so but there's a battle that was a day, and it's a pivotal point in Islam of the survival of Islam, and a number of people died, and the descendants of the Prophet Muhammad were there, and there was a number of deaths within the family line. So the challenge is that we do what we'll do is we'll spend, so like it's for me it's like 12 days, so we'll do a 12-day thing, and then you go to the masjid or the imam barga, and you go and there'll be storytelling, and there'll be some people are big into mourning, so they'll do a lot of mourning. I'm not a mourner, so it doesn't work for me. But and then we do matam, which is it's just this in rhythm at a particular time in the prayer ceremony, and it's to symbolize the persecution and that you're willing to it's self-flagellation, but it's not supposed to hurt or anything like that. It's really more of a collective sort of like mourning and acknowledgement. Um, but there are people that go the other way. They will take chains and wrap it around their arms and make themselves bleed or cut themselves with a sword. And like that's just and then that's what makes the news. And people go, look at Muslims, you know? So it's
Yeah.
like and it's like oh this big spectacle, particularly in Pakistan, they love to do this. So this is like I know I'm gonna get someone's gonna hear this who's Muslim and they're gonna go like that guy. And they're gonna say, well, he's not I know exactly gonna happen. But the thing is that there's something really wonderful about the storytelling and there's something really wonderful about like remembering what was going on and that remembrance and then as a collective community everybody comes together and has what's called a majlis, which is just a meeting and the Muhammad's daughter uh, Fatima was the one who kind of said we need to keep doing this in remembrance, which is part of the tradition. But I think that's the closest we get to like an amusement park experience is during certain holidays we reenact, storytell, and then it might be an activity like matam where you just pat your chest collectively and everybody kind of gets into it. If you're and so I don't believe I mean, like, if you go to the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, you'll have the Prophet's bowl, a piece of his beard, maybe some sandals, and I think there's a kaftan, a big coat from Fatima, um, and uh, and I think there's certain artifacts, but they're not relics like in the Catholic tradition or relics within what would be or something that's celebrated or visited or a theme park would be the next would blossom from that. Do you know what I mean? Like so it's a strange thing for us to kind of experience, and so like it's but it's normal here in America, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like right down the road we have the largest kaleidoscope in the world. Why do we have that here? Well, it's the largest kaleidoscope and everybody loves it, but it's not dissimilar than having the Ark or the largest bowl of twine, right? Or something like that, right? Because it's part of an American thing. Do you think
Yeah.
that's more of an American phenomenon?
I guess. I mean, the bigger the better, you know? I don't know why we have those kinds of things.
Well, like the maybe the kaleidoscope people, I kind of like, you kind of do a nod and you go, well, they must be hippies. This is kind of something really important to them. They kind of have done it, and so they are able to create their own world and a revenue source from something that's really sexy to them. And maybe that's a in a weird way a beautiful thing, you know. But they're not indoctrinating people into the kaleidoscope cults. Maybe there is. I
Right.
don't. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah. So what would what like what, from it turns into something different when it's faith based and it's the Ark or the Creation Museum. Is that your take?
Yeah. Yes. I hear what you're saying. It
Who celebrates their faith with an amusement park? That's the thing that's kind of
exactly.
like there was a year ago someone there was a passion reenactment at an amusement park and one of the audience members jumped out and attacked one of the Roman soldier actors and I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, that poor Roman soldier actor. He's like punching his card in, getting the armor on, and he's just an actor. He's just like an actor at this thing, and probably an aspiring actor, right? And
Yeah.
and then he's just getting beaten up by this audience member who's mad at him for killing the Jesus actor on the cross. Like I just think about what a terrible day that guy probably had.
Is it on the internet?
It's on the internet. If you put, yeah, you can
Okay.
Google it.
Okay.
I'll have to send it to you. But it's just one of those things. I don't know exactly where it is. Um, but I remember, anytime something like this happens, someone pings me and they go, "Well, what do you think of this?" And I go, I kind of admire the passion that they have for stuff like this, but they know it's not Jesus, right? And they know that these guys are all just making minimum wage or volunteers who are really sticking it out in the heat of like Tennessee, you know what I mean, to put on a show for you guys, and why would you attack this poor guy, It seems peculiar.
Maybe he was, he inspired this man. He was so convincing on stage.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, maybe he was. Maybe that's the thing. It was like, he was. They were the acting was so good and the setting was so perfect that there was suspension of disbelief. You were in that environment and you thought, well, I need to intervene because this is Jesus. You know. Yeah. Maybe there's a passion there. So I just just a funny, peculiar thing. I was really racking my brains to see if, like, do we do it as Muslims? I don't really know if there's a Muslim experience you know, that's out
I,
there.
if there is, I'd love to go.
Yeah,
I'd love to see that.
I'll have to rack my brain and I'll have to talk with some of my colleagues in the different on the Sunni and Shia side to see if there's something. I mean, we just missed Muharram, but so I would have to bring you to one of the majlises. That would be something that would be interesting, or a Sufi gathering, where there's music and song and there's rhythmic collective movement. That's that's interesting, and it's different. But so Creation Museum, what happened there?
So I did a little piece called Creationism Explained. So after we went to the Ark, I did this little explanation so that people could understand, like a quick breakdown of creationism.
All right, so what is it?
So what is it? Just sort of what we talked about. They believe the Earth is 6,000 years old based on the Bible. They don't believe in evolution. Gosh, you put me on the spot. You got to watch the video.
I'll
People should just watch the video.
the Earth is 6,000 years old. It was God created the Earth in 7 days. 7 days.
6 days, he rested on the seventh.
So that's seven.
Yeah, the wait, where are we? We're creationists. Yeah, so the Bible is literal history.
Right. So is creationism, is it over, or because creationism? How does it? What's the timeline on creationism as you see it? Like, is it over?
Is the timeline? What do you mean? Oh, right. I don't know. I mean, I think no, the timeline continues on. It just starts from 6,000 years ago.
Okay. All right.
When
So
God created the earth, we are living in 6,000 year timeline right now. It'll continue, it'll become 7,000 at some point. But yeah, so everything is crammed into that timeline.
right. Okay.
Every animal, every event that's happened, um, you know,
So at the museum, what's the museum like? So it's the same company as the
yes.
park. Do they bus you in? Do you have to park and they bus you in, or is it
No, you can walk. So you walk into the Creation Museum. Again, you're spending between $60 to $70 plus parking per person. And you can rent a mobility scooter to get to the Creation Museum if you can't walk the distance. It's maybe like a quarter-mile walk once you get through. And they have a botanical garden, which is actually quite pretty. And then as soon as you enter the museum, you are immediately confronted with were dinosaurs dragons? And there's all of this information. It's like, okay, hold on. Now we're talking about dragons. Now the dragons have entered the conversation. It's fantasy. Somebody loved Game of Thrones. Whoever designed that space. The song was like a ripoff from Game of Thrones. It was a lot to take in as soon as you enter. Like you are,
so you weren't convinced? So dragons are not dinosaurs.
there are a lot of dragon legends, which they were talking about. They also had a little display about the story of Saint George and the dragon,
Okay,
and
right.
there were some faux relics of that. So I'm still unclear whether or not they think that's true. They
Huh.
might.
Okay.
And then you're immediately met with dinosaurs and people together, like the Flintstones.
Okay.
You're just immediately in that right away.
Okay.
And then they have a whole, we'll call it science in quotes section, where they have something called observational science and historical science. And I'm unclear on which one they think isn't real. I
Interesting.
still don't know. They had like a display on how we are not related to apes. There's all of these make believe skulls that they had of the evolution of man.
Okay.
Again, I couldn't read too much. You can't read too much because it's like,
Overwhelming.
it's an overwhelming amount of information where they're trying to push what they believe onto you a little bit with, it's just too much reading. Like, I don't know. That's just not what I was taught in school, and I don't like things to intersect too much with like. It just felt like a lot of fake news everywhere.
Yeah.
Just absurd.
So the people, like your observation of the people that are there, are they like assiduously applying themselves to like look at the and read the panels and point in and explain that to the kids or the families, or is this like people just like, we're creationists, this is a museum, they're kind of doing a nod and just kind of like, like an amusement park, like when you go and you may hit some of the rides, you may not hit some of the rides. Who are the observers and how are they interacting with the site?
Well, I was more focused on filming. Like I was there to record and, report back for everybody. But Bobby, my wife, overheard a conversation with a man and a woman. She was like, it felt like a first date because she kept saying to him, I don't understand why they're so stuck on 6,000 years. Why are they so stuck on this? And
Okay.
he's like, I think he was trying to convince her of, if that was a first date, it wasn't going well.
Right. Well, I'm trying to think of how that would be. I mean, I guess if you could go, yeah, that would be difficult. I think to go on a first dates to the Creation Museum.
Yeah.
Even if you're not don't believe it, the fact that you got to park, you got to go from the parking lot to the museum, and there's a little bit of a distance. Then once you're there, all this stuff is really really thrown in your face. I mean, I'm familiar with Christian apologetics, and it's like if you have to explain something that much, or it's so clunky. I always say that to it when I'm doing recordings. They always say it's a very clunky explanation. Like let's just have straight lines, you know. And so um, it sounds like there's out there there's a passion to try to make sure that they explain or over explain the creationism element, even though they may believe it, but to try to thwart off any questions to get to that point. I mean, is
Yeah,
that
I'm sure they've had many, many questions, and that is why they're over explaining things because they've been asked this many times. Because when you finally get to Adam and Eve, it's Adam's, in this jungle like setting, and he's next to a penguin and some type of large cat who
okay?
are not going to eat each other because remember, everyone's a vegetarian. We don't have to worry about that. What's a penguin doing in the jungle? I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, no, sorry, Garden of Eden. So there's just like a lot of they're telling you the story with all of these displays that they've made of Adam and Eve and them interacting and taking you through that biblical story. And you're kind of stuck. Everything is on a path. So you're just following a path. You're with all these people, and we're all sort of, meandering around this. I'm guessing it's a loop.
Right.
So you're kind of stuck in with everybody else, and it's hard to try to get footage with being respectful. It's like, okay, let's let all these people pass, and then we're going to do our little thing. But the part that was the most shocking, and I think it was put there for shock value, is they eat the forbidden fruit. The snake is there, and then you turn a corner, and you're looking at emaciated people from the Holocaust. So they are, yeah, I know, it's a lot.
Huh.
So they all, because they ate the forbidden fruit, it caused every disaster that's ever happened in the world. They've got 9/11 there. They've got a woman in childbirth. They've got, yeah, like I said, the Holocaust. Like it, all of, because they did that, all of this catastrophe and human tragedy happened.
Right.
It's like, what is happening? Why? Why? I would love to know what the Jewish community thinks about that. It was so uncomfortable.
Wow. So that you end the tour with that the eve and then all this catastrophe has happened as a result of this poor decision.
Yeah, well, that's not the end. I mean, you have to keep going. There's other exhibits, and they kind of end with dragons. They're back to dragons. There's a whole dragon themed bookstore.
Okay.
And
Dragons are fun.
yeah, dragons are fun, but I don't know what they're doing there.
Okay.
Like,
Well, you gotta have hooks. You gotta have hooks for their, and kids like, people like dragons. Part of me is like, so what? Everybody's got their own thing, but the indoctrination is a little bit disturbing, and I think the idea of this idea of pressing the storytelling into young minds where they become indigenized to this thinking. I mean, we're in the backdrop of Texas now passing a law that you have to do biblical stories will be now part of the school curriculum K through 12,
yeah,
and
I heard that.
just happened. So it's this creationism will be in there. That's the thing. All these different component things will be in those books. We got to get one of those textbooks. I think
Yeah.
your wife should do story time. To be honest with you, it might be fun to like say okay. And it's got to be in tandem with the curriculum that already exists. And there's stuff that's in the curriculum that exists that's eliminated. So I think that these sites are going to become more and more popular, and because of the not only the rise of Christian nationalism, it's always been here, but the popularity of it and the idea that this is that the America is going to be defined or is being defined as a Christian nation. I mean, without getting too political, what do you think that the long-term effects of this is on your community and maybe the country as a whole?
I, it's just, if we keep going in this direction, it's, we're supposed to be a free country. People should be able to practice their religion or not practice. People like me who are not religious, we should all be protected. And I don't like where this is going. It feels like, if you're not a Christian, you're in danger. It feels scary.
Yeah, I mean, you're a cultural Christian. I mean, like that's the other thing. You grew up Christian, right? But not being their Christian is the thing that's really kind of peculiar, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a lot of different Christian, what are we calling this? Branches of Christianity.
Sure.
They don't, I feel like they don't interact. Where it's like, okay, the Orthodox Christians are here, the Catholics are over here, evangelical Christianity is over here. Like they don't, maybe in your world they do, but where
Yeah.
I live, it's heavily Catholic, Presbyterian, Lutheran. There are mosques here. There are a lot of people from India that are here, and their faith. So I'm in a blue dot in a red state. So it's a cultural melting pot. So it's not. not in rural Ohio where things are pretty black and white. I don't. I feel like I've derailed the conversation a little bit,
No,
but
no, yeah. So
what
we're talking about your experience and how the reaction of your community to something like this, because it's a particular sect of Christianity. Yeah.
I feel like, because I'm in a very liberal area, people are resistant to that. And I wouldn't say it's heavily evangelical, even though there are a lot of mega churches popping up. And that is another video that we did that went viral. We went to a mega church, and it is just as absurd as you think it is,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, well, that was the because we were talked about the three places, like three, your three places or three experiences, and the mega church experience it was something unique for you guys. It was, I mean, it was like a concert, right? We were talking about
Yeah.
that. So yeah, well, how did as sort of the culmination of this conversation, you end up at this mega church, and what's going on there? Because this is the embodiment of the both museums. It's the sort of living, breathing faith. What was your experience with the at the megachurch?
Well, it was not the first time I had been there.
Oh,
The first time I was taken there by my deceased spouses, my previous spouse who passed away, his dad was dying, and he took me there to try to save me.
okay.
That didn't work. So I'd already been there. I knew the layout. So I kept telling my wife, we have to go to, it's called Crossroads. And they have a huge online presence. It's not just, in Ohio and Kentucky. It's all over now. They have a big presence online. And but I wasn't there with someone I could commiserate with the last time. So this was more like, it is so funny watching her reactions to these things that she doesn't want to be involved in. It's kind of fun for me. It lightens the mood for me that she's, and I think the viewers enjoy that we're being tortured a little bit, like we are not enjoying ourselves. But they're all these free, they're known for their free coffee. So they want you in an altered state when you're going in. And the music is so loud, your internal organs are rattling.
Huh.
Like it is like this intense, shaking, loud experience. And I'm definitely on the spectrum. I have a lot of sensory issues. So if you are can't handle sensory overload, like I had to close my eyes quite a few times because then they shine bright lights into your eyes a bunch.
Huh.
I don't think if it's like the lumens of Christ, they're getting into your eyes. It's really intense. And in the middle of the service, they made sure there was time for them to try to get you to give them money.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So they had did a whole thing on, you need to you'll get to a new gear of your faith if you're generous with your money. It's you got a
Prosperity
new
gospel. Yeah, if you pay,
pro.
indulgences.
Yeah, you're going to get closer to Christ if you give them your money. And there's a QR code on the back of your seat. You can pay right away.
Oh, okay.
That felt. I'm so glad I got that on videotape. I just looked at Bobby and I was like, I got it. She was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the grift in the middle. This was crazy. Like, I, I've sat through hundreds of Catholic masses. Sometimes there's a basket that gets passed around. You can put money in it or not. This was on the next level, like
QR code.
asking for money,
Yeah.
QR codes, pay right away. Yeah, it was a lot to take in. It
Huh.
is overly overstimulating. And there's a new word I learned. It's either like emotional or collective effervescence, where
Huh.
like it happens to people at concerts
Yeah.
where, everybody is just feeling it at the same time. And that is absolutely happening in the audience. People are like standing up, their arms are up, they're feeling it. I mean, I was having the opposite reaction of like, I wanted to get away from there. I wanted to be saved from being in that situation. um, so,
Well,
I, you know,
I think people want to be part of that community, our community. People want to have those feelings, and it's like being at a concert. People want to go to a concert. So if you make religion like that, then you're gonna get those desired results. I think, and that's why these churches are growing. I don't know if religion is supposed to be like that. Maybe I have friends and colleagues that say no, it is, and there's other parts of it I go, well, I feel like it's more of a discipline. You need it if you're going to be faithful and you're going to try to serve something larger than yourself, then you're not going to want to be at a concert for an hour. Like you're gonna want to try to get out into your community and have faith in action in that way. But I think it's very difficult. On the other side of it, because I'm a religious freedom guy. It's like, well, maybe self-expression is that to someone, and as long as you're not hurting anybody, fine, but I think that what's it's difficult because you're going out and you're experiencing these things, and you're getting this a lot of information at one time, and on top of that, we have the backdrop of Christian nationalism, and so people are motivated to do things in our community to evangelize and then press like a Christian political agenda. I mean, was that happening at the megachurch?
Um, if it was, we didn't want to talk to anyone. We didn't want to be too involved. Like, we just kind of want to pop in and pop out. But I feel like they are trying to do that during the service. They're trying to connect with you, and they're saying things like, even if you don't believe, come back. Like it's in this sermon or whatever you want to call it. They try to work that in without having someone come up to you and try to get you to do something.
Right, right. So where are you going next? What's the next big
So
place?
I have quite a few requests from people. There is a humongous church not far from us called Solid Rock, and it is an evangelical church. They are known for having the Big Butter Jesus, or Touchdown Jesus is what people used to call it, but it was struck by lightning and went up in flames. So
Okay.
they rebuilt another humongous statue of Jesus. It's one of the largest religious statues in the United States. And yeah, so many people have wanted us to do that. So we're going to do that. We would love to do other things that are more fun
Okay.
than, than some of these things that we find a little bit grueling. Um, you know, Weird roadside attractions, interesting museums. We would love to travel the world and just find one curiosity after the next. And a lot of what I do is commentary and storytelling. So, we just like to take people along for the ride. We're happy. I call them misfits. We've got a big bunch of misfits on our social media account. People from that just maybe overlooked, and they've found a community, and the comments are really fun. I love seeing other people interacting with each other from all different faiths, or we got atheists, we got we're in a same-sex relationship, so we have a lot of people from the LGBTQ community, a lot of the goths. People forget about them. Like, we just have a big lovely group of people that are following us along, and we're come along for the ride.
Right on. And it's not just Christian places. You guys, like I said, you went to the mosque in Cairo, and or when you were in Egypt. I don't know if it was in Cairo. And it's difficult because you're in Ohio, so you're in the middle of America, which is great because there's a lot of stuff out that way, and you're close to Kentucky and some of those states, but it's there's quite a bit just in America as itself in itself to go and come and visit. Like I was talking about the largest kaleidoscope here. We have something really that's charming and creepy called the Teddy Bear Museum, which is
Nice.
yeah, it's just the thought they're like the most thoughtful couple in the world. But you walk in and you're kind of wondering, are there drums in the basement filled with people? Like this is one of those things. In 30 years, it's gonna be like, wow, the community loved it. People did birthday parties there, but guess what? So we have stuff like that. And like as a local boy, it's one of those things where you're going like, well, you always kind of think about those things, but like I said, the largest kaleidoscope and some of the highest vertical walkway in North America, and so stuff like that that's kind of neat. But your commentary applies everywhere. Like I said, you kind of walk in, and whatever material they present to you is what gives you it directs the path of the recording of the commentary, particularly between you and your wife.
Yeah. I mean, I never know what I'm going to see when I go. It's sort of an improv the whole time. And then I go in and edit everything. And so I can tell the story in a way that keeps people interested to watch. But yeah, it's fun. We're having a fun time. We, the goal is, yeah, definitely to continue to travel and find more interesting places. And the mosque in it was in Cairo. It was Muhammad Ali Mosque. Beautiful, stunning. I We had nothing bad to say about it. Like even the people worshiping, like just be respectful wherever you are. Just be respectful, even if you don't agree with what people are doing or whatever it is. Just stay in your lane. Like I don't care what people believe. Just believe whatever you want.
Yeah, no. So what's the handle? What if people want to find you? We're gonna put stuff in the show notes, but what's
Yeah.
if you want to find you? People want to go on. Is it Instagram or TikTok? Where do people go?
Yes. So Instagram's the biggest one right now, but Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And it's all under the same handle. It's Diary of Ruth Reck.
Okay.
And it is my diary. Instagram, I started Instagram when it first came out, and I documented like my life from 2010.
Okay.
And it wasn't until January that I turned this officially into a diary account.
Okay.
And even though, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, you can watch my whole life from the past, what is that, 16 years?
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what we'll do is we'll put the links in the show notes. But I appreciate you taking the time and sort of unpacking some of this stuff. I mean, our listeners ask about some of these sites, and I'm like, I've never been. I don't really know. I mean, although I talk with some of my co-hosts about going to some of these places, and but I it's it's a good thing to be able to go to places and to laugh and to take a little. It's like a steam valve. It takes some of the pressure off of everything. These sites and these individuals are putting themselves out there. It's maybe a business. There may be indoctrination. There might be all these things going on, but the fact that we're able to laugh at such things, that we're able to experience things through individuals like you who are who are co-opting their wife into these scenarios, is something that helps, I think, with society and helps with not only understanding but also helps with, like I said, being a little bit of a threshold where people can release a little bit of stress by expressing themselves, and that's why your videos are so popular. I mean, people love them. That's why we're talking. So I appreciate
Yeah,
you taking the time.
absolutely. Thank you for thinking of me. I I was very surprised when I got the email. So I'm like, wait, who wants to talk to me? This is crossing faiths. Am I going to be like, are they going to analyze me? And am I going to be?
Yeah, we don't do point counterpoint. We don't do it or gotcha. The whole point of it is just for us to walk in like kind of like an intern and put our bags down and find out what people are doing, and then really kind of promote what's going on in different places. I mean, if we do talk religion and politics, we do get into stuff, and if someone solicits my opinion, I'll say it. But generally, I don't really contribute that way. But we were excited. It's like we need more stuff like this where we can kind of joke around. And you and I had a conversation offline about Islam, and we can certainly do a question, a thing where we do a recording where you can start asking me questions, and put me on the spot. I'm happy to do that. I've been on the spot most of my life. So, but we can have you back on to talk about your future experiences or burning desires when it comes to other faiths. And so we're very lucky, very gracious for you to participate. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, and I would love to come back on, and we can do like a history lesson of
Sure. Yeah, me too. If you thought like our conversation was useful to others, then maybe we just do that.
absolutely. I mean, I was taking notes while you were talking. It was fascinating, and I think a lot of people do not understand the Islam or what the practices are, what people believe. I feel like it's one that people don't touch, especially if they are surrounded by Christianity. It's kind of like, ooh, what's that? I'm not uncomfortable or weirded out by stuff like that. If I'm curious about something, I just lean in. I want to know as much as I can about it. If something doesn't make sense to me, I just want to know more and more and more. So yeah, I would love to come on and I can ask you questions and you can tell us about your faith.
Right on. Let's do that. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.